Blast that Peter Pan! If only I could find his hideout, I'd trap him in his lair. But wait, what's this? A Disney villain character review based around me? Mr. Smee? Yes, Captain? Pipe up the crow. Aye, aye, Captain. Yo-ho, 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 yo-ho. So try the life of a thief, assemble the life of a crook. There isn't a boy who won't enjoy a whacking for Captain Hook, the world's most famous crook. A special offer for today, I'll tell you what I'll do. All those who sign without delay will get a free tattoo. Well, it's like money in the bank. Come on, join up and I'll be frank. Unless you do, you'll walk the plank. The choice is up to you. Yo-ho, 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 yo-ho. You'll love the life of a thief. You'll relish the life of a crook. There's barrels of fun for everyone, and you'll get treasures by the ton. So come and sign the book. Join up with Captain Hook. Hello YouTube, Film Buff 06 here. Before I start off my new series of 10 Disney villain character reviews, I have to say that it has been a really hard decision for me as to which Disney villains to choose from, to review, because of course there are just so many Disney villains to choose from. Like, for example, like Lady Tremaine, the wicked stepmother from Cinderella, Mother Gothel from Tangled, the wicked queen from Snow White, Governor Ratcliffe from Pocahontas, Prince John from Robin Hood, heck, even Hades from Hercules, etc. But unfortunately, I just don't really have that much material to review all the Disney villains. So I just had to pick only 9 of the greatest all-time Disney villains. So, with that said, I'm going to start off this new series in swashbuckling style by talking about the world's most famous crook, Peter Pan's arch-nemesis, and one of the all-time best examples of a comical Disney villain. Yes, it's the one and only Captain James Hook. He was, of course, based off of the original character from the original novel and stage play by J.M. Barrie. His first appearance was, of course, in the classic 1953 Disney adaptation of the Peter Pan story. He was animated by 9 Old Men members, Frank Thomas and Wolfgang Reitherman, but that was only for, his scenes with the crocodile and also his fights with Peter Pan. Now, Hook was also originally voiced by character actor Hans Conried, who also performed live action, who also performed live action reference. You know, was the live action reference model for the animators, and nowadays Hook is voiced by veteran voice actor Corey Burton. The Disney version of Captain Hook is also what most people really think of when they think about, you know, Peter Pan, you know, a threatening but at the same time a very, very funny villain. Now, at the beginning of the story development stage for Peter Pan, the movie, Captain Hook was originally going to either be, you know, a murderous fop or really just a complete heavy, but the character was only completely pinpointed during the animation stage, as it was very, very difficult to create really this potentially threatening villain whose character would not become, you know, diminished by his scenes with the crocodile, if that makes any sense at all. The story writers eventually settled on making Hook, you know, this black-hearted, you know, man who was always trying to maintain this pretense of being like a gentlemanly pirate with certain, you know, good tastes and a sense of style about him. Plus, he was apparently modelled after a Spanish king. Now, as we all know from both reading the book and even seeing all the different film adaptations of the Peter Pan story over the years, Captain Hook was a pirate who sailed the seven seas with his crew and his loyal first mate, Mr. Smee, on board his ship, the Jolly Roger, somehow found his way to Neverland, had his left hand cut off during a fateful duel with Peter Pan, who then fed his hand to the crocodile, had that left hand replaced with an iron claw-like hook, and has ever since not only developed an obsessive hatred towards Peter Pan and his lost boys, to the point where he would not rest until the day where they walk the plank and become crocodile food, but has also developed an irrational fear of crocodiles, and consequently a fear of ticking clocks. So, what are my thoughts on Captain Hook? Well, I think he is a very enjoyable villain to watch, and Hans Conried did such a great job voicing him. If Disney, you know, handled Hook properly, at worst, he could have come across as very generic, which he sort of was in Return to Neverland, but I'll get into that crap later in the review. It's really interesting enough and almost ironic to know that Disney's version of Captain Hook, while almost staying true to the original character that J.M. Barrie wrote back in 1904, about 110 years ago now, is actually more cowardly than the original character. Speaking of which, I like the fact that Hook would love to physically think of himself as the more, adult and respectable type, if that makes any sense. But once you put a ticking clock near him, he would just cower away immediately like a little child in a grown man's body, and those two different sides of his character, I believe, are brilliantly shown within his costume. Firstly, his, big red, pirate captain's coat, which looks, very elegant and very regal, almost giving him the appearance of a 17th century king, i.e. Charles II. And also, a little bit off topic, it makes me wonder if John Pertwee was actually almost inspired by Captain Hook's costume, other than James Bond, obviously, when he was, deciding what costume his third Doctor was going to wear, what would be, the dandy frills and such. But that's my theory anyway. But underneath the coat, he seems to be wearing what looks like a lavender, pajama top, as if he hadn't bothered really to take it off since, childhood. I also like the fact that Hook is, very ruthless, badass, and always ready to kill anyone, and always is ready to kill anyone whenever they make him, really annoyed as hell. For example, some of Peter's obviously childish and immature behaviour. I mean, come on, he's a boy who would never grow up after all. For example, Pan calls him a codfish. And also the times a codfish. Also the times when, Mr. Smee would actually do something spectacularly incompetent and stupid, like for one example, he hitting Hook right on the head with a hammer, which by the way, in my opinion, was just comedy gold. And also when he gets annoyed by some of his crew members, I mean, he shoots one of them. I mean, within his first scene, he shoots one of them down for his poor singing. I mean, now, I always thought, really, this aspect of Hook's character was quite hilarious, almost in a way making him almost like a cartoon villain, which of course is almost is quite evident through his Dick Dastardly-esque moustache, but also makes him quite murderous at the same time, but not too murderous as to the point of traumatizing young kids, obviously. I also love the comedy interplay between Hook and Smee. All I can say about that is that it is just very entertaining to watch, and it quite often reminds me of, the comedy, double act between, Yzma and Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove, and also in a way of Prince John and Sir Hiss from Robin Hood as well. Now, Hook is also a great schemer and, plotter, almost like a classic James Bond villain in a way, in terms of, the many plans he could come up with to try and get rid of Peter once and for all. For one, for instance, he plants a bomb within a present of love, and making it out as if Wendy is giving it to Peter. Whether it's because he thinks it's more, delightfully cruel to do so, or because he doesn't feel all that confident in his abilities, really, of directly taking his enemy out head on. I mean, which would be understandable, since he did lose his left hand in a fight after all. Nobody really knows. Well, I don't know anyway. Hook is also very good at finding, loopholes within contracts and deals. And the best example of this is when he uses Tinkerbell's jealousy towards Wendy in order to manipulate her into disclosing Peter's hideout. The scenes where Hook gets chased and almost always eaten by the crocodile, it has to be said that those scenes just feature some of the funniest animation I have ever seen. I mean, only next to the wizard duel between Merlin and Mad and Mim from The Saw in the Stone. On this subject, though, at the end of the original story, J.M. Barrie has Hook killed off by having him fall straight into the crocodile's jaws, finally, giving the creature, the nice tasting meal it has wanted for so frickin' long. But at the end of the Disney, however, at the end of the Disney film, Hook does get chased by the crocodile, but he survives. And this is because Walt Disney came to the realization that young audiences would grow to like Hook, and it was consequently decided that the character should not be killed off in the final film, which is a fair enough decision on Walt's part. I just also want to rant a little bit on Hook's appearance in the crappy direct-to-video sequel, Return to Neverland. There is just nothing really that I can say about his character in that film, other than Disney Toon Studios took Hook's character from the original and completely shat on it by reducing him to being a generic villain. He isn't an ordinary generic villain. He isn't in any way as threatening as he was in the original. His motivation was weak. His manipulation of Wendy's daughter Jane was lame. And what really grinds my gears the most is that throughout the film, instead of a crocodile, Hook has to be chased by none other than a giant fucking octopus. What the fuck were those writers thinking? Oh God, I just don't want to say any more about. I just don't want to say any more about Return to Neverland before I really blow my top. Overall, I have to conclude that despite the crappy way his character was handled in Return to Neverland, Disney's version of Captain Hook, while he may not be as threatening as Ursula, Jafar, Shere Khan, and Maleficent, among others, he, in my opinion, is still one of the most entertaining Disney villains I think I have ever seen in my whole entire life. My rating for Captain Hook as a character, it's got to be an 8 out of 10. Should have been really a 9, but since I'm including, if I'm just talking about Hook from the original, but since I'm including Return to Neverland, as it is, yeah, it's an 8 out of 10. Now, feel free to leave a comment in the section below and let me know your thoughts on Disney's interpretation of Captain Hook, and also what you'd rate him out of 10. Plus, feel free to subscribe to my channel. My next Disney villain character review is going to be of the animated incarnation of Cruella de Vil. Until then, do take care, everyone, and goodbye.